Picture this. You're cruising through some of the world's most contested waters, minding your own business, when suddenly your radar lights up like a Christmas tree. That's exactly what happened to the crew of the USS Princeton on June 14, 2025 at 9:23 in the morning. What started as just another routine patrol in the South China Sea was about to become a masterclass in why challenging the United States Navy remains one of the dumbest ideas.
The strike group's mission was textbook freedom of navigation, predictable course, transparent intentions, and the kind of professional conduct that separates real navies from what are essentially floating militias. But professional doesn't mean pushovers, and the Chinese were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Inside the Princeton's Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer watched that Chinese destroyer's approach with the kind of calm that only comes from knowing you've got 122 vertical launch cells loaded with enough firepower to turn any surface ship into an artificial reef. The math was simple, but absolutely terrifying for anyone on the receiving end. At the Chinese destroyer's current speed, she'd reach weapons engagement range in exactly 17 minutes. Here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean scary as hell. The John Chang's YJ-18 anti-ship missiles could theoretically cover the remaining distance in under 4 minutes once launched. But here's the kicker. The Princeton's SM-6 missiles in surface mode could reach out about 240 nautical miles and swat those Chinese missiles out of the sky like flies at a barbecue. The captain's response when asked about going to general quarters? Pure American confidence. Let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves first. By 9:30 a.m., the Princeton's cooperative engagement capability had automatically shared the threat data across every ship in the strike group. This is where American naval technology really starts to shine. When one ship sees something, they all see it. It's like having a hive mind, but with guided missiles. The Nimitz herself adjusted her flight operations with Swiss watch precision. The destroyers Chongqing and Kidd shifted positions to create a protective screen around the carrier that would turn any Chinese attack into a very short,
Now here's where it gets almost comical. The J-15s were struggling to gain altitude, likely because of fuel limitations from that ski jump launch system the Chinese are so proud of. While American carriers use catapults to launch aircraft at full combat weight, the Chinese were launching fighters that were basically flying on fumes before they even reached altitude. But wait, it gets better. The sonar operators detected what they believed was a Type 039 diesel-electric submarine about 80 nautical miles away. The funny part? This thing was making noise like a freight train. Any competent submarine crew would have been mortified. But here were the Chinese conducting what they probably thought was a stealthy approach. The Chinese weren't just being aggressive. They were orchestrating what military tacticians call a multi-domain intimidation campaign. Surface ships from the 1990s, carrier aircraft that couldn't carry full weapons loads, and submarines so loud they might as well have been broadcasting their position on social media. It was textbook bullying, the kind that only works if your target is too weak or too scared to fight back. Unfortunately for Beijing, they just challenged the wrong navy in the wrong ocean. The US Navy had been perfecting blue water dominance since 1914, and these Chinese forces were about to receive a free lesson in why American naval power remains unmatched. By 9:37, the USS Nimitz's flight deck erupted into the kind of controlled chaos that only American carriers have truly mastered. FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA-14, the top hatters, rocketed off the catapults at 45-second intervals, a ballet of precision that Chinese carriers, dependent on inefficient ski jumps, could only dream of matching. The 1st Division of Super Hornets climbed through 15,000 feet, their AN/APG-79 AESA radars already painting the incoming J-15s at maximum range. The technological mismatch was almost unfair. The APG-79's 1,000-plus transmit-receive modules could track dozens of targets simultaneously.
On Chinese radar screens, ghost contacts multiplied like a virus. American fighters appeared and disappeared, multiplied and merged. What looked like 4 F-18s became 12, then 20. Radar locks broke and reformed constantly. The J-15 pilots found themselves fighting phantoms while real threats maneuvered unseen. The Americans executed what's called the Wall, a defensive formation perfected over decades of naval aviation. High cap at 35,000 feet, medium at 25,000, and low at 15,000. Multiple overlapping engagement zones, mutual support, and absolutely nowhere for the Chinese to go without entering someone's weapons envelope. Meanwhile, the Chinese formation remained bunched together, a necessity when your data links can't support distributed operations. They had to maintain visual contact to coordinate, making them predictable and vulnerable. Their J-15s might look impressive on propaganda posters, but in actual combat, they were flying antiques against 21st century warfare. At 9:47 HT, the Zhongchong crossed a line that would have triggered immediate retaliation from any other navy. Her Type 346A phased array radar stopped searching and locked onto the USS Nimitz with fire control quality tracking. In naval warfare, this is one breath away from launching missiles. The electromagnetic
Sonar, subsurface contact bearing 159, range 15,000 yards. Contact is snorkeling, classified as probable Type 039. He's making noise like a freight train. The submarine captain either didn't know or didn't care that the Princeton's SQS-53 sonar suite had been tracking him for the past hour. They had his acoustic signature cataloged, his position fixed to within meters. If this went hot, he'd have about 12 seconds to contemplate his life choices before an ace rock turned his boat into fish food. At 2:30 p.m., the USS Nimitz decided it was time to end this little game. She launched everything that could fly. 48 aircraft roared off her deck in the largest single-carrier display of air power in years. Super Hornets loaded with live weapons, EA-18G Growlers carrying electronic warfare packages that could black out a city, and E-2D Hawkeyes commanding the electronic high ground. The afternoon sky turned dark with American aircraft, and that's when a Virginia-class attack submarine decided to make her grand entrance. This boat had been shadowing the Chinese formation for 8 days, silent, invisible, patient. At 3:47 p.m., she surfaced 6 nautical miles from the Shandong, close enough for Chinese lookouts to see her with their naked eyes. The psychological impact was devastating. 8 days of undetected operations meant their entire anti-submarine screen, helicopters, sonobuoys, hull-mounted sonar, had failed completely. If this had been...
The Chinese went home that day with their ships intact and their pride significantly damaged. The Americans? They just went back to keeping the world's sea lanes open for business, one freedom of navigation patrol at a time.